Please welcome the 14th President of Colorado State University, Dr. Tony Frank.
Good evening, and welcome to the first lecture of the President's Community Lecture Series. This university and this city have been inexorably intertwined with each other, going back to our days as Colorado Agricultural College and the first plotting of the city, through our time as Colorado A&M, and today as Colorado State University. The city is a vital part of helping us recruit and retain the very best in human capital, students, faculty, and staff. And as the largest employer of the region, and perhaps more importantly, drivers in the innovation economy, we think we've been a cornerstone of the community of Fort Collins for quite some time as well. So when it became time for us to start talking about how we might help the city celebrate its 150th birthday, we thought, what better way than to share the very best that we have. The heart and soul of any university is the faculty, and we're blessed at Colorado State to have faculty members who literally travel the world as invited speakers, sharing their perspectives with audiences, and we thought, let's bring a little of that right home, right here and home to Fort Collins. So for the first one of these lectures, I turned to my very good friend and colleague, Dr. Steve Withrow. Now, there were two reasons for this. One, everyone else who would take my calls turned me down. And Steve was the one faculty member we had who I think might have been around 150 years ago at the start of... Now, we'll come to this point in a moment, but Steve is a surgeon, and I'm a pathologist, and pathologists and surgeons have special relationships with each other. So I'm going to get my digs in now, knowing that Steve will have the microphone last. Let's see, what can I tell you about Steve? After leaving the University of Minnesota, apparently graduating, he moved on to do an internship and residencies at the Animal Medical Center in New York City, one of the nation's busiest and most prestigious small animal hospitals. He did postdocs at the Mayo Clinic and at Mass General. He joined Colorado State University in 1978, the first year that I was able to vote. Just perspective, not judging. He's a board-certified oncologist, a board-certified surgeon. I think it's a fair statement to say that he has defined the field of veterinary surgical oncology. He certainly put CSU's oncology programs on the map, and over the span of his career, he has advanced the caliber of our College of Veterinary Medicine and Biomedical Sciences, and indeed the caliber of the university as a whole. I think it is not without exaggeration to say that Colorado State University is substantially better because Steve Withrow has been on our faculty. He is a university distinguished professor. He founded the Flint Animal Cancer Center. Through literally thousands of scientific publications, presentations, and studies that he's been involved with, his work has bridged the fields of veterinary medicine and human health. In fact, in many ways, I would argue being one of the great inspirations for the One Health concept that finds so much traction in our world today. Now, I first met Steve in 1993. I had just arrived at CSU. I was reasonably close to having finished my PhD and my residencies. I had passed all my board exams. I was at that point in life where administration had not yet taught me how little I actually know. And so my head was pretty full of facts. Now, I knew Steve Withrow and I had heard of him. And so when did they used to do those rounds? Were those Wednesday nights? Yeah. So there were these sets of rounds where the pathology residents and some of the oncology and surgical oncology residents would come down, and they would go over the surgical biopsies and whatnot and talk about the cases and really bring these things together. And everybody kept saying, Dr. Withrow does these, and you're going to be amazed at these. You have to come sit in on these. And I thought, I'll be the judge of that. So I remember the first night that there was one of these. I was there, and I listened, and as Steve talked, the statistics, the incidence rates, the ability to describe a response rate, the perfectly timed stories that would tell how cases responded to this, and in fact what the exception was, and the time that he had been fooled by something initially, and you should watch out for this. And I thought to myself, this guy is either making all of this up or he is incredible. And I came to find out he was making all of that up. And I also came to find out that he was absolutely incredible. I could go on about his scientific accomplishments, but I'll just close with this. Steve Withrow has, outside his profession, probably helped as many people as he has helped within it. It has been one of the great, great blessings of my life to get to know him. And so, ladies and gentlemen, for the inaugural lecture of the President's Community Lecture Series, it is my great privilege to introduce to you Dr. Stephen J. Withrow, my friend.
So I don't think I need the microphone. Thanks very much, Tony. Watch this university grow and watch Tony grow at the same time. 3 disclaimers. One, this morning I woke up and I had vertigo to the point that was a double screen and I couldn't walk straight. And my good friend Mark Lowry here in town, ear, nose, and throat guy, usually I call him self-diagnosed, self-medicate, just want him to fill the script. So he was shocked I would really come in. So like Lance Armstrong and Alex Rodriguez, now I'm on steroids and some other stuff. He said, he'll just get me 2 hours tonight of stand-up straight time. And then I promise to actually be a good patient after that. I'm not a physician. I'm going to make some comments about human health care, but I'm not a physician, so take that with a grain of salt. And lastly, I can't thank everybody I'd like to. I watched the Academy Awards or whatever the other one was, Golden Globes or something, everybody trying to thank everybody. It can't be done. I think you know out in the audience there's a lot of friends and there's new faces as well, so it'd be impossible to thank everybody. I'll try and squeeze them in as I can. But if I ever say I mean we. It's always been about teamwork. And it always will be. Nobody can succeed, or no institution or unit or center within this university succeeds in isolation. So Tony and Matt Helmer actually made this title up, so I'll try and stay to the script. I'll try and limit the science and mostly just tell stories. I mean, this is a wonderful profession, veterinary medicine. It's a wonderful university, academic medicine. I have had a wonderful career and would do it again if given a chance. I found this quote just last week, actually, and it seemed appropriate since I'm 66 years old, that when Tony called a couple of months ago and said, would you give a lecture, I thought it was to 4 senior citizens in a nursing home, and I said, sure. And pretty soon my face is in the paper, and my 18-month-old grandson can point to the paper and call Bobo. That's my nickname for my grandson, Wiley. Bobo, we keep pointing at it. So this got a lot of hype, and hopefully I can tell you some stories that you can take home. Now, if you don't believe in evolution, now you can either stay at CSU and understand evolution, or you can go to the Galapagos. So it's about the same. This is Tony Frank in 1985, graduating from the University of Illinois. You can thank Durnell for this picture. And, it looks like Neanderthal man here. He evolves into wearing a Cubs shirt, but you notice nobody's sitting around him. It's either personal hygiene or nobody goes to the Cubs game. It's hard to say. And now look what we've got. So it's been pretty fun to watch him grow up in this institution and represent CSU in our state. So it is with pleasure that I can give this talk tonight, I hope, for him. I'm going to dedicate it to 3 folks and animals that have recently sort of touched my life. First, DeSante, I was just at his funeral last week, but I was privileged to be at cancer camp, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, when he caught his first fish. and he went through the ropes course over here at CSU last summer. He died of brain cancer 10 days ago, and is an inspiration to me to continue the fight. We're not done. It ain't over, and the battle goes on. Pat Hall is a volunteer with the Animal Cancer Center, is in battling currently advanced stage pancreatic cancer, very graciously with courage, and we wish her well. And Oakley Hers. Oakley died in our critical care unit 10 days ago from an immune-mediated condition. Oakley's owner, Connie Hers, runs the cancer camp that I work at. And if you learn something tonight, I'm dedicating it to these individuals. A few disclaimers. I've told people I can put up the same slide and tell a different story. So some of this is probably a little muddled in my old head and some of the drugs I'm on, but most of them will be fairly accurate. So a little bit of personal history. I was born and raised in a Catholic family. As the oldest of 3 boys, I had to do everything first, and if it wasn't successful, my damn brothers didn't have to do it. So I started off as an altar boy. That didn't work out too well. But with the new Pope Francis, I'm actually I'll consider giving it a second look. But confession would take a couple of weeks. That's the problem, right? Boy Scouts, I couldn't tie a square knot, so that didn't work out too well either. In high school, my career counselor said, you know, you really should skip this whole idea of college. You ain't going to make it. In Forest Service or fireman or policeman would better suit you. My dad was 250 and 6'4" and said, you're going to college. I went to college. That was the best counseling I had. In pre-vet, I wasn't really academic at all. Almost flunked out of the University of Minnesota, Duluth. Then I met the pride of my life, Sue Withrow, my wife of 45 years. She got me on the straight track. And I ended up, after 2 years in pre-vet, I applied to vet school, which you could do in those days, just 2 years of pre-vet, got turned down. They said, if you go back for year 3 and you get a 4.0, we'll reconsider you. So I went back to for year 3, I had to take over physics and chemistry. I got ornithology, that was a good one, and astronomy, I passed those. And I got a 4.0 and I reapplied. But I had a draft number of 35. And in those days, Vietnam was going on. If you had a 35, you were going. That's it. And so I was ready for officer training, which my wife wasn't too thrilled about. And I got turned down in vet school in July. It started in September. And so I was preparing to look at other career choices, waiting for the draft board to call. And vet school started. 2 weeks after vet school had started, I was the last person in. Somebody didn't show up. So I was the last entrance into my vet school class, and I can still remember being scared to death walking into class because these guys were, it was all guys then. It's all girls now, or women now. One guy had a slide rule. Oh my God, I'd never seen one. And one guy had a briefcase. And I thought, I went home and said, I don't know how I'm going to survive. I don't know how I'm going to get through this. And I made it through vet school. Vet school was great, and as Tony said, I moved on to the Animal Medical Center in New York City. This was at 66th and York, underneath the Queensboro Bridge. It was an 8-story private hospital. In those days, you know, the cream of the crop was academic places, and private practices were just evolving. And this hospital was sent up to teach advanced training in surgery, medicine, imaging, all the different disciplines. We actually had 12 surgeons in Rod Page's here. Unfortunately, and this was my class. You notice the picture, I got a cigar. He's got a cigar in his mouth, actually. That was kind of the norm, and we had the hippie haircuts. And Mike Kaplan has since died of a brain tumor. Steve Stoll has since died of lymphoma. And 2 others in this picture have developed cancer and are survivors. That's pretty much the national average. 1 in 3 adults in this country will develop cancer in their lifetime. Tremendous training. Right across the street was Sloan Kettering Hospital. I got involved with the rounds over there and realized the translational nature of what we did, and that we had a tremendous opportunity. In these days, we didn't treat cancer. It was test and slaughter. We didn't do any radiation therapy to speak of. We did very little chemo. We did some surgery, did some cryosurgery. We kind of goofed around. We didn't really do anything meaningful. And then it was like a light switch went off. A bunch of us woke up and we said, hey, we can do more for our animals, and at the same time we can help people. Let's try and develop this translational medicine gig. So I want to thank all my partners in crime here. You note it's all males in those days. Then, after 3 years in New York City, I should say my marvelous wife went there 6 months pregnant, and we didn't have an OBGYN, we didn't have a hospital delivery, we didn't even have diapers. We didn't know what we were doing. Young kids, never been east of the Mississippi, so it was a heck of a wake-up call. It was great, except I was at the hospital all the time. After 3 years in New York City, I couldn't take it anymore, so I looked over the map for the place that was farthest away from New York City, spoke English, and taught and had an academic institution to teach vet med. Because I never had a clue. I really wanted academics, but they had good duck hunting. That was really the prime reason to go to Saskatoon. Saskatoon was a wonderful place, except for the 40 below for 4 months part of it. This is the Besborough Hotel on Highway 1 in the Saskatchewan River, which never freezes all year long, even at 40 below. And it was a wonderful experience. It showed me that teaching, clinical service, research could all be blended. And that it really was a fun thing to do. And so that really launched the idea of an academic career. There's lots of forks in the road. I've already mentioned 2 or 3 of them, and you'll have to just imagine what they all are. But these 2 guys really, and one other physician, were really inspirational to me. As part of the training program in New York, you got 3 months to go to any place you wanted to in the world. Most people stayed in the New York City area, and you went to, a soft tissue or a heart transplant place, or you went someplace and you got 3 months of experience. I was fortunate enough to go to the Mayo Clinic, and when I got there, they didn't have a clue what to do with a veterinarian, so they put me on the scoliosis clinic, which Minnesota was screening all the young women 16 to 18 for scoliosis. So you do x-rays, and they'd strip to the waist, you measure their spine, you think that's a good gig, but boy, it gets old after a while with the mother's penetrating eyes looking at you. What the hell's a veterinarian doing here? And after a week of that, on a Friday afternoon, Frank Sim, who was the head of the orthopedic oncology, so bone cancer service, was looking for volunteers for a case that was going to go all night. A lady needed half of her pelvis removed for a cartilage tumor, and he needed help, and so he came in. I said, sure. And so as the evening went on, it became clear we had things in common. In particular, I played hockey. He said, can you fight? I said, yeah. And so he said, I need a defenseman on my team. When I grew up in Minnesota, boxing, hockey, and wrestling was all one sport. And so he said, if you'll play defense for me and take out the bad guys on the other side, then you can be on my service the rest of the time you're here. I said, great, that's a wonderful thing. So I spent 3 months with Frank. It was tremendous, got to scrub in on all the cases. The Kennedy boy was there at that time, sadly, with a bad outcome. That's before we knew much about bone cancer. And then, so that really launched me into saying, hey, we can be equal citizens with our physician friends, and we can be equal with the science, and we just got to prove ourselves to ourselves, really. The science will speak for itself. Later, I was very fortunate to meet Henry Mankin, who was the head of orthopedics at Massachusetts General Hospital. And I spent 6 months there with Henry, who's a strong advocate. He realized before I did that animals were great models. And it was a wonderful experience with Henry in '86. That was one of my sabbatics from the university, which is a tremendous offering that we get every 7 to 8 years to advance science. And brought back a lot of ideas. A number of graduate students were fostered under Henry's ideas at Mass General. A tremendous time. Henry, after a week on with Henry, he made me switch my name badge from DVM, which I was kind of mad about because he took one initial away from me, to MD because he had to explain who I was every time. So he said, we're just going to make you an MD for 6 months. Okay, we'll do that. And as Tony said, I came here in '78 as an orthopedic neurosurgeon. I always had an interest in oncology, but oncology was pretty primitive here in those days. And Ed Gillette, who sadly has passed away from prostate cancer. I think his wife Sharon is here tonight, but I owe Ed a tremendous debt of gratitude. So I came in here as a surgeon. I was supposed to do knees and hips and junk like that, fractures. And pretty soon I was seeing all cancer, and the students weren't getting to see any orthopedics. So then they said, get out of here. So they shifted me to medicine service, and I did that for 2 years, and all I was seeing was cancer, and they couldn't get the puking dogs and the dirty ears in. So they said, why don't you just go by yourself over here someplace? Just here's a corner, go take that corner, and you can start seeing cases. So for 2 years, I was alone. That got to be old, 12 months on call for 12 months out of the year. But slowly, with the help of the university, the college, the hospital, the department, philanthropy, we built this program up to what it is today with 100 people, over 100. And so that transition took 4, 5, 6 years. In those days, federal money, grant money, facilitated by Ed's intellect and connections at the federal level, was what we lived on. So we had program project grants, many $1 million annually that came into the university, and you got back, as a grantor, you got back some of the money that was displaced for salaries. So if I was a 12-month faculty and 3 months of my time was written into a grant, we often got that back and we could hire somebody else. So that's how we lived, all on the federal money. You'll see that that's completely reversed now. We live on industry and we live on philanthropy, but we don't ignore the federal money. In those days, up to 40% of grants got funded. Today, it's 8%. I don't know how you lobby to get more research money, but try it if you know how to do it. And so we built the service, but Ed was the power behind it. We're totally different guys. I'm an outgoing, egotistical, maniacal surgeon, and Ed was a reflective researcher. Yeah, but somehow it was a wonderful partnership. As a hardcore Minnesota Democrat, I still want to be bipartisan, just like our government, right? And this is the key to success, in my opinion. We only have 2 metrics of hiring people in the Cancer Center, congenial and collegial. I don't even know the difference, but I know it when I see it. And that's the people we want. We can teach you professional, well, I don't know about teaching professionals, you better have that too. But we can teach you the science, we can teach you to write grants, write papers, diagnose a case, treat a case, that stuff, you know, that's what we're there for. But bringing in the right people to form a team is the key to success, without question. I don't care if it's the business or the university or a center like we have. It's like herding cats. We can never get 100 people to sit for a picture. We're lucky to get 50. But the Flint Animal Cancer Center is a physical plant. I'm going to talk about how we got there in a minute. And a key player I am going to mention is Rod Page. My best guess, I've trained almost 5,000 veterinarians now in my career through Saskatoon and here. And you watch the stars, and I watched Rod and graduate in 1981, follow my path to the Animal Medical Center, then to Carolina, which was our collaborators in Duke University in those days with the program, and then on to Cornell. His mom lives in Longmont, and we formed a coalition to call Ithaca, New York on cloudy, shitty days in Ithaca when it was sunny here and ask him how the weather was. And it took a few years, but we got him back. So Rod is now the director of the Cancer Center, and I'm proud to call him a friend and colleague, and the university helped us retain that kind of leadership transition. Just some general facts about cancer. I don't want to bore you too much with it, but it's not one disease. There's at least 100 subtypes, if not 1,000 subtypes, if you look at the size of the tumor, the sex of the patient, the site, the stage, the grade, all of the things that define cancer. It's a very difficult enemy, and it's not one thing we're defeating. It's a myriad of diseases all coming under the umbrella. Best guesses we can give today, about 1/3 of people will get cancer in their lifetime, 1 in 4 dogs and 1 in 5 cats. This dollar sign should go away, but there's 1.6 million new cases of malignant cancer diagnosed in the United States annually. The cure rates just put out last week by the American Cancer Society are approximately 60% of all cancers end up cured in this country. That's pretty good. In Colorado, it's just over 60%. In Colorado, it's just under 70%. So we actually, in Colorado, we're doing better. I would argue that's because of access to clinical trials and the University of Colorado Cancer Center and its recent collaboration with Poudre Valley Hospital. And then if you break that down, there's about a 1%, there should be a percent in here, annual reduction in cancer death rates over the last 20 years. Now, that is not all from better cures. Some of that is prevention, and some of that is screening. So our cures are slow in coming. We get home runs, but this is a marathon, beating cancer. It is not a sprint. You're slogging through the mud. You're not running on dry ground. And I'm proud of the fact that we're making progress. I'm disappointed in the fact that it's not faster. Cure rates in animals are hard to know. In people, it's a reportable disease, so everybody knows how many cases. Poudre Valley has to report, diseases by site, stage, et cetera. And so you know what the national averages are. So in pet animals, we really don't know. It might be 30, it might be 40%, hard to say, because it's not a reportable disease. And in the last 20 years, we've made tremendous progress, but in all honesty, we've taken the low-hanging fruit. Owners' early detection, referring vets, understanding that you treat stuff small, not big. Better surgical techniques, which it just took some understanding. We could always do the surgery, we just didn't know we should. So now the hard grind begins. We've taken the low-hanging fruit. Now we have to fight hard for each inch of ground that we take. And it will never be a home run. In Tony's analogies, you're going to bunt yourself to first, steal second, pass ball to get to third, and a single home. That takes time. It's not going to be a home run. That shouldn't discourage us from looking at the progress that we're making. And a lot of the stuff that we do in animals, well, there's animal research. There's the animals that normal animals research who have no say in the matter, that are part of the drug industry, FDA, safety, efficacy stuff, which we would like to reduce. And then there's the animal studies that are pets that are owned by you guys. And why should you invent a disease in normal animals when the real deal walks in the front door? I mean, it's just common sense. So, and a lot of what we do is not necessarily the home run for treatment. We do proof of principle, phase 1, phase 2 trials. So we try new stuff. And a lot of the times it simply doesn't work. Fine, that's valuable information because it tells you that you probably don't want to take that forward to human trials, or if you do, you want to modify it. And I can give you, any oncologist can, but I can give you 100 examples of things that I did that were failures clinically, but gave information that was valuable to humans in terms of side effects, and some of that I'll display in some of the case examples. So it doesn't have to be a cure to be beneficial. Improving quality of life is just as important as improving quantity of life. This is an intriguing book, which is more optimistic than the title shows. But this guy's an author and a cancer survivor, Clifton Leaf. I think he wrote for the New Yorker or something out east. But I just finished reading it, and he's suggesting that not so fast. That the battle is not over. We've won the first foray in the woods, but we got to keep going. And he points to a number of shortcomings in the current way we do business, and it's intriguing. I'm still optimistic, but this is sort of sobering. The Flint Animal Cancer Center we built, we opened it in 2002. General Schwarzkopf actually opened the building for us. 35,000 square feet physical facility, $10 million. It was $9 million from private sector, people like you, that gave us money. Flint's put up $3 million, hence their name on it. And $1 million from the federal government based on our past history of good science, and if we had new digs that we would do better science. So we got $1 million, which was the max then, and Ed Gillette was responsible for that. We expanded the clinic, we expanded operations. What you forget when you build a building is somebody got to run it. So we need our own grants manager, we need our own meter greeters, we need our own scheduling people, we need our own everything. So that's all self-contained within the Cancer Center. We have 10 labs I'll talk about. It's an affinity setting for cancer on campus. We're non-denominational. If you are studying cancer, we're interested in what you're doing. And even though you may not be physically housed in the Cancer Center, we want to collaborate, we want to provide opportunity, we want to help you fund some of your small grants, we want to bring in your graduate students, we want this to be an integrated approach across campus. There's approximately 100 members now on site at the Cancer Center. And by far, it's the largest cancer center in veterinary medicine in the world. There's probably 10 or 12 in other veterinary colleges worldwide that exceed more than 5, 10 people. What I found interesting and has really consumed my last years in the job has been the development effort, that you as clients and you as friends of the Cancer Center are willing to help us. And I was amazed. You'd get no training, I'll tell you, in development, much less education. I mean, all of a sudden you're a professor, you're supposed to know how to teach. Well, who told me how to teach? Nobody. You just sort of figure it out on the run. Well, development was kind of the same way. I've really enjoyed it because the people that have chosen to help us and support us really believe in us. They've almost always experienced the real trip through the clinic with a pet animal and then ask questions about how to help. So you need to be clearly aware of what your needs and core values are. Our core values are pretty simple. We care and we cure, or at least we try to. We always care, sometimes we cure. So do you need people? Do you need scholarships? Do you need programs? I'll talk about some of that. Do you need operations support, which is the least sexy thing that you can, that's paper and travel and books and junk, and somebody's got to pay for it, right? So that I'll talk about in a second. Major equipment needs, we've purchased almost $10 million, or contributed almost $10 million in major fixed equipment to the university cause and our cause over the last few years from private sector, and we have a physical plant now that we enjoy. We obviously follow donor intent. Some donors know immediately what they want. Some will be guided by greatest need. Some will develop their own innovative ideas of how to do things. Do you want cash that you can spend tomorrow, or do you look to the future? We have about $25 million now endowed with the university, which has been a wonderful steward of our money, which means we're going to be here in 10 years and 20 years, regardless of what state funding does, because we've endowed, which means $1 million you get 45K, 4.5% annual return on your money. It's pretty good. I wish I could get my money there. Fundraising, saying thank you to donors it's nowhere near as good to take them to dinner or send them a birthday card as to take them a piece of salmon. My brother lives in Kodiak, Alaska, so I bend over backwards for the team and go up there and catch fish for a week. University does not pay for that trip. And so I fly back 200 pounds of fish, and every summer I do a pilgrimage to the people who have provided us help in the surrounding area and bring down salmon and fresh vegetables from my vegetable garden. And we go to a hotel or someplace, we have a lunch, and then it's like a mad scramble. These people are all driving up in BMWs and Lexus and Caddies, and they're running to my trunk to get first dibs on fish and veggies. So this is a king salmon up there, and Bob Taylor, who is a good friend, veterinarian, who was a movie star on Animal Planet Emergency Vets. Bob has accompanied me on a lot of these trips, even though he's not affiliated with the university. He believes in what we do. So the salmon thank yous have been, I reckon, have gained us $10 million.